I think this is an interesting question to ask about Aaron Rodgers. How good is he? His numbers, box score stats were definitely down this past season. He's now on a new team with the Jets. So let's talk about what he brings to the table, and can he still be an MVP caliber quarterback for them, which, to win a Super Bowl, you don't necessarily need that, but it sure does help, and oftentimes you do need that. So let's talk about Rodgers, his last season in Green Bay, and what went right and what went wrong. So first, let's start off with some positives. Why don't we? Some plays that I think that if you are a washed quarterback, which I don't think is even an argument about Rodgers, I think everyone knows he's not washed, but if you're a quarterback who has maybe lost a step, typically, you can't do this type of stuff where basically it's going to be a one-on-one matchup on the outside. That's what you're looking at right here. It's cover 3 zone, so single safety deep. Can his receiver win the one-on-one matchup? And one way to help is to make sure you make a good throw. Well, right when the play starts, you see that Rodgers has to look and see if it looks to be open, and it looks like it's a pretty good situation, right? I mean, the defensive back is still a little bit further deep than his receiver, but at the same time, his receiver has had more time to get up to a top speed, is currently at a top speed. Corner is still getting up to his top speed, so making a throw here, I think a right call, but you definitely have to hit the throw here. You have to make sure that you throw a good ball. As you see, Rodgers, this is a thing of beauty, and to be honest, I thought he did a really good job with these throws. A lot of times, really, teams were kind of playing the Packers this way, which is not a way Rodgers is used to being played, which is single safety deep. They're letting you try stuff on the outside because they didn't respect the Packers receivers, and it wasn't until Christian Watson came along late in the year and he was able to actually win on those routes that teams had to finally start mixing it up again, but they still ran this a lot, and I thought Rodgers, even when Watson wasn't winning, was still throwing up good balls, like to Lazard and stuff. They weren't always hitting, but this time it did, and a lot of times they would hit. Also simpler stuff, something like this, where what's going to happen is this is going to be a Christian Watson play. It's going to be man coverage. So one-on-one matchup, find your best option. Christian Watson was usually his best option last year. So, okay, I'm assuming this year it's going to be a lot of Garrett Wilson and stuff like that. And, these are the kind of routes that the Jets certainly want to see, their receivers win at. And they, one thing that helps is if you have a quarterback who can put it in a good spot. Also, quick side note, the graphic you see on the screen is actually incorrect. The route you see on the screen, that's not the correct route. That's Allen Lazard. It's actually Christian Watson, who's just one guy above him, the guy closest towards the top of the screen. He's running that route. So just so you know what to look at. But yeah, anyways, once this play begins, you see that Watson, about to cut over the middle, there definitely is a window. He has the inside leverage. And again, I think about Garrett Wilson in these spots. And one thing you want to do if you're a quarterback is make sure you put the ball in a spot, not just where your receiver can catch it, because that's obviously good, but also, you want to get as many yards as possible. Put it in a spot where he can catch and then run with it. As you see, Rodgers did exactly that, and he did this at he's done this at a high level consistently his entire career. So, again, if you're worried about his arm strength losing a step or anything like that, I would not be, because I think that he does a very good job at being able to, his arm talent to me is still very much there. Also, something like this, for example, it's going to be, a play action play, and this is something that I think is a fair critique you could talk about with Rodgers. And maybe if I'm a Patriots fan who hates the Jets and is trying to come up with reasons why this will fail, this would be what I come up with, even if I don't necessarily fully believe it myself. You see the concept on the screen, the offensive concept. Rodgers is going to take the snap. He's going to run to play action, looks down the field. Nothing is really open. Okay, there's options. Like, you have a Packer player who actually has his hand up, who's right at the goal line right now, but that's a tough throw to make across your body over the field. Rodgers doesn't want to hit it there. Again, a couple guys you could maybe force the ball to, but Rodgers doesn't want to force the ball in the end zone situation right here. And the one, I think, listen, Rodgers has gotten plenty of critiques over his career, right? Definitely a guy who can rub some people the wrong way. But one of the critiques I think has been relatively fair with him is he will take sacks sometimes when he doesn't have to. Like, watch out right here. It felt like he pretty much, allowed himself to get sacked right there. You would have liked him to more quickly get rid of the football, throw it away. That's kind of one of the knocks on him that I think is a fair knock. And for the Jets, you definitely saw situations, even last year, although it was less last year, but like, when Zach Wilson was in there, I mean, you saw how he didn't know what to do with the football, and he would just like throw it to the other team. So, okay, it's better to take the sack than to do that. But still, this is maybe a critique of his. But again, it's not a massive critique, and I think the Jets receiving core is good enough. I wouldn't really worry about it too much. Because on the flip side, stuff like this is going to actually help the Jets, where this is something they really didn't have at all last year, was someone who took a bad situation and turned it into a good one. Where you see the concept on your screen, the route closest towards the bottom of the screen, that's the one Rodgers is going to initially look towards. Watch how when this play begins, Rodgers looks over, and it's supposed to get underneath in zone, but the players playing zone do a pretty good job of making sure they're covering it up. So for Rodgers, kind of quickly realizes, okay, this isn't going to work. And again, guys like Mike White, who is better in these spots, probably still just makes this throw and it gets incomplete. I think Zach Wilson probably throws it, but he one-hops it probably because Zach Wilson really struggled at those underneath stuff. Rodgers is going to actively make this situation better. Watch how he's going to get outside the pocket, avoid pressure, and now looks over and sees that he has a man, but it's a tough throw, right? He's going to have to make an off-balance throw really in a perfect spot. But of course, that's exactly what he does. And this is one of the things that the Jets just have not had, and who knows how long. Not just a guy who can run an offense, because they've had guys do that here and there, but a guy who can actively be a playmaker. And when situations are bad, turn them into good situations. And yes, he was still even doing that just this last year. Also, stuff like this. This is another, play to talk about. This is the one, I guess I would say, that, again, if you're someone who hates the Jets and wants to see Aaron Rodgers fail, these are the plays you're going to point towards. It's man coverage, single safety deep. That's the way this play is designed to work. So Rodgers takes the snap. He's going to, it's sort of a designed for him to move towards the offense's right. But anyways, right here, kind of on the hash marks towards the top of the screen, maybe a step above them, he looks up and sees that there's, a one-on-one matchup deep down the field. I can see why he wants to take this chance. Rodgers makes his throw, and it's way behind. And I'm not sure if it was intended. He thought maybe the receiver was going to flatten out that route or something. And there might have also been a pull on that play, a little, a pass interference potentially. But that was still a well-behind throw given the situation. And you saw him turn the ball over a lot more than we usually see him turn the ball over last season. And that's maybe the one thing you could point towards is, well, I think the most common assumption, and probably what I would think is the case of why he turned the ball over more frequently, was just the lack of receivers around him. The lack of receiving talent probably caused that. You could argue that maybe he has, again, not become washed, but maybe his arm talent isn't what it once was. He threw 12 interceptions last year. The last time he threw that many was in his first season as a starter, where he threw 13. So, I mean, he hadn't thrown double-digit interceptions since 2010, when they, interestingly enough, won the Super Bowl. So, definitely, this is something that, it's an unusual scenario. Is it just luck? Is it the receivers? Or is it his arm is maybe not what it once was, and he actually missed some throws? One thing I do talk about is that having arm talent makes you a better decision maker, because the tight windows you try to throw it towards end up hitting more. And is there some concern? You could talk yourself into it. I wouldn't be overly concerned personally. I'm not overly concerned about it, but I can see someone talking themselves into it here with Rodgers. But as a whole, if I had to bet, I'm going to bet on Rodgers succeeding and Rodgers still playing at at least a top 10 quarterback level, and probably a top 5. I would probably bet he'll play at a top 5 quarterback level next year. Could he win an MVP? Sure, he could. It's possible. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.